The inner self, the Atman, has been described in many ways as Sat, Chit, and Ananda, being, consciousness, and bliss. It's been described as the witness of the mind. It's been described as the unchanging I am awareness. And today we're going to focus on a particular aspect of the description of the inner self. And that is, it's the source of our being. It's the source of our joy. It's the source of love. It's the source of peace. It's the source of our life force. And so we're going to do a few dharanas today so that you can have an experience of the self as the source. In fact, the senses, each of the five senses, are doorways, are vehicles, and the senses can be used in order to tap into the source of our joy. So one of the Vidyanbhairava Tantras, this is dharana number 50, says that when the yogi mentally becomes one with the incomparable joy of song or other objects, then of such a yogi there is an expansion of his mind, chitta, and he identifies with that incomparable joy and becomes one with it. So this is another way of saying that the source of joy in music comes from our own being. We all have our favorite pieces of music, and this can actually be a spiritual practice of simply listening to the music that you enjoy. So the yogi becomes one with the music, listening to an extraordinary piece of music. I happen to like Nessun Dorma, Pavarotti. When he sings that, it puts me into a state of samadhi, of ecstasy. I get the God chills. I become one with the music and have a direct experience of it. So I would encourage you to find your own piece of music that you really love, that you really relate to, and use that as the vehicle for meditation. So the yogi listens to a piece of music that he really loves and joins his mind to it. And that, in a sense, is yoga. Yoga is the joining, the union of the individual soul with an object of perception, ultimately union with the Supreme Self. Then the mind reverts back to its source. We talk about the mind in Shaivism as being chitta. Chitta is chitti, universal consciousness, in a contracted form. When the mind takes the form of an object of perception, it contracts in order to become that particular form. If we become one with the object of perception and allow our consciousness to be drawn into that union, to that place where union takes place, the chitta, the individual consciousness, becomes one with the object of perception and reverts back to universal consciousness. So the mind is the contracted form of universal consciousness, taking the form of an object of perception. So we can use an object of perception, such as music, to go back to the very source. So find a piece of music that you really like. Something that you can become totally absorbed in. Listen to that piece of music. Think of nothing else. Keep your mind totally focused on the piece of music and allow the feeling of joy, of beauty, of delight, whatever rasa, whatever juice, whatever form arises for you, become one with the feeling itself. And that will lead you to the experience of the inner self. So I invite you now to go get a piece of music. This is your homework. Take the piece of music. If you have headsets, put your headsets on. Listen to the piece of music. Become completely absorbed in it. And then use that as the means of going to the place of complete stillness. So I invite you to do this practice, and at the completion of the practice, make some notes in your journal what exactly it was that you experienced. So let's take a look at another one of the dharanas, the short centering techniques from the Vijnanabhairava Tantra. This is verse number 72. It's dharana number 49. And the sutra says, when one experiences the expansion of joy of savor arising from the pleasure of eating and drinking, one should meditate on the perfect condition of this joy. Then there will be the supreme delight. So if the yogi meditates on the perfect condition of the joy that arises, even from the satisfaction of the physical need, he will feel that the source of this joy is also a divine spanda, a throb, a movement of joy with his own being. And one should become absorbed in that. And thus will experience spiritual bliss. So in this practice, I encourage you to get something that you really enjoy tasting. Maybe it's a piece of chocolate or a piece of jaggery or a smoothie or, whatever it is that you really, really enjoy. And eat it with the intention of knowing your own being. So there's various stages of this. So you take let's say the piece of chocolate or an ice cream cone, you take a bite of it. There's the physical sensation. Become completely absorbed in the physical experience of eating something that's delicious. Notice the savor in your tongue. Notice the flavor and the textures and how it feels. And begin to notice the feelings that arise when you're enjoying the taste of something. So it will go from the physical level to the mental level. In fact, if you truly enjoy it, you'll find that your mind becomes quiet. It's temporarily satisfied. Usually when we have something that's delicious to eat, it's coming out of a desire. I'd like an ice cream cone. I'd like a piece of chocolate. And so for just a moment, the mind is completely satisfied, has no cravings, no desire. And in that satisfaction, the mind becomes still, becomes content. And then the energy that had been previously in the form of a desire now comes in the form of joy. So we begin to recognize that that sense of joy is arising from within our own being. We let go of the exterior action of tasting and eating and become absorbed in the feeling itself of satisfaction, of delight, of savor, of joy. So your homework for this particular practice is to find something that you really enjoy eating or drinking, and do this as a sacred ritual, as a sacred practice, as a means of recognizing the self within. The self is the source. It's the energy. It's the spanda. It's the rasa. Spanda means the throb of delight that arises when the mind is quiet. And it's our natural state. When the mind is satisfied, when the mind is resting, when it's completely still, the energy that usually arises and takes the form of a desire rests in a state of satisfaction. So I encourage you now to get something that you really enjoy the taste of. Enjoy it, sit quietly, go to the source of the joy. And we'll do this for 5 minutes. So we'll allow 5 minutes to pass here, and then in conclusion. And so I hope you enjoyed the delight of eating or drinking something that gives you great joy. Now I encourage you to take a couple of minutes and write down in your notebook what it was exactly you experienced. What did you learn from this? So we can use all 5 senses as a vehicle of taking us to the source of our joy. Now we're going to take a look at the sense of smell. And I'm going to invite you to find a fragrance that really delights you. It might be a sacred oil, might be a flower, might be burning some incense. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the sensual experience of smell. Set it up as a sacred ritual and enjoy the sense of smell. And once again, go through the stages of enjoying that. The first part is the physical sensation. Just allow your senses to enjoy the beautiful fragrance of sandalwood or musk or whatever fragrance really delights you, a rose. Become absorbed in the sense of smell. Then going deeper within, notice that it's a mental delight. Notice that the mind is satisfied. It's completely absorbed in the aroma, the fragrance, and has no additional desire. It's perfectly content. So become absorbed in the sense of smell. Close your eyes, go deep within, and see if you can feel the rasa. See if you can feel the delight, the satisfaction that arises when you smell something beautiful. You can use this as a vehicle to go all the way back to the source. The joy isn't coming out of the rose. It isn't coming out of the fragrance. It's actually arising from within. See if you can observe that in your own experience. So go get something that smells delicious, yummy for you. Enjoy the sensual experience of smelling it and use that as the vehicle to go within. Notice the mind becoming quiet. As the mind becomes quiet, you can go to the source of rasa, the source of delight. So we'll sit quietly now and meditate for 5 minutes on the source of joy when we smell something that gives us great delight. So we'll leave 5 minutes here, and then as you come out of your meditation, I encourage you to take a couple minutes now, bring out your journal and write your experience, write your insights about discovering that the source of joy arising from smell comes from within your own being. So Abhinavagupta, in his Rasavada, in his theory of the rasas, the juices, the major joys that are within us, talks about the beauty of the aesthetic experience, whether it's listening to a beautiful poem or listening to a work of art, listening to a piece of music, looking at a work of art, and I invite you to inquire within what brings you the experience of beauty. What lifts your heart and opens your heart in aesthetic rapture? Is it music? Is it art? Is it maybe smelling a rose? Is it the beauty of a sunset? Find something that gives you that aesthetic experience. And just as for an example, we'll use the beauty of a sunset. So I invite you one afternoon to, when the sun is setting and it's a beautiful sunset, to just go and observe the process of the sun setting. Allow yourself to feel the grandeur and the beauty that arises at that particular moment. Keep your mind completely focused. Don't let the mind wander here, wander there. Use it as a form of meditation. So looking at the beautiful sunset, you may begin to feel that sense of beauty arising. The beauty isn't coming out of the sunset and into you. The grandeur, of the experience isn't, anything to do with the exterior. Somehow, the sun setting beautifully enables you to go to the source of the aesthetic experience. So today's practice is to watch the sunset or any other aesthetic experience that you enjoyed, reading a poem that really moves you, or watching a movie that really touches your heart. Take a moment to have an aesthetic experience and notice that it's not the external that causes the experience. In fact, in my own experience watching beautiful sunsets, which I like to do regularly, I notice that when the emotion of the beauty and the grandeur arises within me, I often close my eyes, no longer looking at the sunset, but looking at the feeling that's arising. So that's actually part of this practice, is using the external experience to trigger an internal experience, then becoming absorbed on the inner experience and seeing where it arises from. So your work this day is to choose an aesthetic experience that delights you. Have the experience, write it down in your journal. So let's look now at the sense of touch, sparsha, as a means of triggering an experience of joy that arises within. The Vidyan Bhairava Tantra says, at the time of sexual intercourse, an absorption into the beloved is brought about by excitement, and the final delight that ensues at orgasm betokens the delight of Brahman. This delight is in reality that of one's own self. So there have been different yogis have interpreted this in different ways. Lakshmanju says it's purely symbolic, that the joy of orgasm is symbolic of the joy of ecstasy of knowing the self. Other tantric practitioners say, no, it's quite literal, that the joy that arises when union takes place between lovers, between sexual partners, is actually an opportunity to notice, where does the joy arise from? Now, this is a practice that takes a lot of discipline, because it's easy to forget in the passion of lovemaking that it's a spiritual practice. But I would encourage you, those of you who have sexual partners, the next time that excitement arises and leads to orgasm, have the awareness that the joy that's arising is more than just physical pleasure. The mind is quiet, the mind has become still, and it's an opportunity to experience the joy of the self arising, and that feeling of union with the partner is really symbolic of the experience of the union of Shiva and Shakti. So this is a very powerful practice. And I think what you've probably seen over the last couple of lessons is that all of the senses are portals, are opportunities to open to the experience of the divine, so long as we have the right understanding. I've given 5 different examples using the senses as opportunities to experience the inner self. And these are types of practices. So you can begin to develop your own practices based on these ideas. The idea is simply that the joy that we experience in the physical world arises from our own inner self. And you can notice from your own experience that, I happen to love pizza. When I go and I'm in the right mood and it's a good pizza, the joy arises spontaneously. Other times, it doesn't happen. Why? My mind is distracted, I have some issue, something there. So it's not the pizza or the quality of the pizza that gives the joy, it's the contentment that we experience in the moment. It allows the mind to become quiet and the joy arises spontaneously within. So create your own, using whichever sense is important to you. In fact, the Vijnanabhairava Tantra says that you can choose anything. Let's see if I can find this particular dharana. So this is dharana number 51. We'll end this section on this dharana. It says, wherever the mind of the individual finds satisfaction without agitation, let it be concentrated on that. In every such case, the true nature of the highest bliss will manifest itself. So I invite you to take a moment and contemplate, where do you find the most satisfaction? A lot of times when I go to sleep at night, I'll just think about, what is it that thinking about makes me happy? What brings me joy? In fact, let's do that right now. What in your own life brings you the most joy? Just thinking about it makes your heart expand. What are you really, truly grateful for in your life? What is it that just thinking about it makes your heart open, filled with love? Yeah? For me, I can easily think of my children, my 2 boys. Just thinking about them fills me with love. I also had a particular puppy. Her name was Mutsky. She was a little Tibetan terrier. And all I have to do is think about her cute little face. My heart just melts. So what is it in your life that just thinking about it makes you feel grateful, makes you feel uplifted? Do you have something in mind? I think most of us are grateful for something. So I invite you to hold that in your heart right now. We're going to do this dharana together. So the first stage of this dharana is to slow the breath down just a little bit. You can begin by slowing the exhalation down. We want to get the exhalation and inhalation about 5 seconds each. 5 seconds on the inhale, 5 seconds on the exhale. And once we've gotten to that point where the breath is sufficiently slowed down, I want you to call to mind, call to your awareness that which gives you satisfaction, that for which you are grateful. And see if you can begin generating the core heart feeling of gratitude. Most of us have access to being grateful. We can, at will, be grateful for something. It's a little more challenging for some people to just go right to love, but gratitude can lead to love. So let's begin with gratitude. Holding in mind that for which you are grateful. Begin to feel it in the heart. Continuing to breathe slowly, breathing deeply, feeling grateful. You might even say, thank you, God, for this gift in my life. Feel the gratitude beginning to expand. It's almost as if the heart is a fountain, and we have the capacity to let the fountain overflow with gratitude and spread throughout the body. Allow this feeling of gratitude to fill every cell in your body, every muscle, every fiber, till you're just buzzing with a feeling of gratitude. Then allow this feeling to grow even more. Thank you, God, for this gift in my life. Filling your aura, your subtle body, extending beyond the physical body into your energetic mechanism, so that you become a fountain, radiating gratitude. Allow that energy to fill the entire room. Feel it expanding. Can you feel that? Can you feel the gratitude? Can you feel your heart opening? Continuing to breathe slowly, continuing to breathe deeply. And I invite you to rest in this state of expansion, of deep gratitude, for as long as is comfortable for you.
Pranam Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Swamiji, I wanted to know, how can the sensual experience lead to the direct experience of the inner self?
This is a very good question. You know, in many traditions we're taught to repress the senses, right? That the senses are the problem and we need to control the senses, and they seem to be out of control. The Tantric approach is very different. The Tantric approach tells us, use the senses, use every opportunity in life to turn within. So what happens? We see a beautiful sunset, right? We're looking at the sun, and for just a moment, the mind is satisfied. And it's in the satisfaction of the mind, in the stillness, that the illusory power of our desires fade away, and we're able to experience the inner self. You see, most of us live from desire to desire. I have a particular desire, I satisfy that desire. As soon as I'm done with that desire, I'm off to satisfy another desire. The Tantric has a little bit of a different approach, that it uses the desire to satisfy the desire, and in the moment, use that satisfaction, that stillness of mind, to go within. So it's a movement from the exterior world to the inner world. So we have a sensuous experience, whether it's eating something delicious or seeing a beautiful sunset or smelling a rose. We delight the senses, we feed the senses, we give it delight, so that for just a moment, the mind rests in contentment. And when it's in the state of contentment, there are no desires to fill the mind and cloud the direct perception of our own self. So the practice is to go from the exterior world of sensual experience to noticing the enjoyment of that experience in the mind, and then continuing the momentum of going within to go back to the source of the joy. So this is really a meditation. And it takes place in various stages. There's the external world, the sensual experience. There's the mental enjoyment of that. There's the stillness where we go from the word or the sensual enjoyment to the source of that joy. And that's really the key. Sensuous experiences can bring us back to the source of experience itself. And so the dharanas that I've taught of using the sense of sight and touch and smelling are types of experiences that you can begin to use in your life. You can create your own experience of using the senses to go back to the source, which is your own self.